Here's Hargreaves, chance for Torquay. Chris Hargreaves, the captain. If he stays onside, Carlisle checks instead. He's looking for Benyon. Sills!
Hello, welcome to part two. We've got a special guest this time. We're joined by Sam from Argyle Life, Green and White podcast. Thanks for joining us, Sam.
Hi, lovely to be here.
So we are going to talk about Devon Day, of course, and kind of Plymouth struggles before, what it was like for a Plymouth fan in those times, and any kind of advice or reassurance you can offer us during this time. So we start with Devon Day. Torquay have encouraged Exeter and Plymouth fans to come across, and also there's already been a lot of nice goodwill from Exeter and Plymouth fans already. But Devon Day is a chance, I suppose, because obviously Plymouth don't have a game because of international duty. I don't think Exeter do either for that same reason. So they've been encouraged to come along. From a Plymouth point of view, Sam, what's it been like from us seeing what's happening to Torquay right now?
Yeah, it's really horrible to see. Obviously, it brings back a lot of memories of what we ourselves went through 13 years ago. Obviously, from Exeter, from their point of view, because obviously they're a welcome part of Devon Day as well. It brings back what they went through more like 15 to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's obviously we all have our local rivalry and all that kind of thing. But the one thing nobody ever wants is to see a fellow football club with heartfelt fans who go week in and every out, week in, week out, every week. Nobody ever wants to see a club go under or be at threat of going under. So, yeah, it is very bad, obviously, partly in the sense that it's almost a bit of a traumatic reminder of the times we had, but also just obviously in its own right, we feel for you guys as Torquay fans. It's a very complicated situation, isn't it? I know that. Obviously, I'm not, I don't know as much about the intricacies as I'm sure you guys do, but I know there's, they're trying to find new owners and there's difficulties with meeting outgoings, isn't there? Operating costs, the players and staff getting paid, all of that very much reminds me of when Argyle were in the same boat. So yeah, I'm just here to encourage Argyle and Exeter fans to do what they can. And really, I want to give you guys, like I said to you off mic a minute ago, I want to kind of give you guys the platform to say, really, what specifically can we do to help? Is it just a question? I'm sure you'll come to that later, but is it just a question of putting money in? Is there any sort of demonstration aspect that we can help with? But yeah, I'm probably wandering off on a tangent and answering probably 3 or 4 questions ahead, knowing me. But yeah, it is very sad to see. We just hope that you guys can get something sorted soon.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the big part, I think, which makes Torquay, Exeter and Plymouth teams like that very unique is we constantly hear from a Torquay point of view, we can't get players down and we aren't an attractive club for players to join because we're so far away. Yeah, our neighbours, Plymouth and Exeter, both have done absolutely fantastic jobs in the last sort of 5-10 years, have shown that you can have a successful model. So almost like the successes of Plymouth and Exeter is also for any potential buyers of Torquay. So it can work down here. You can really make it unique. I mean, look, I know right now Plymouth, probably the last couple of months have been what you had hoped going back to September, October time, but just to show, tough times do happen to football clubs, and with the right management, right support, it can work. So going back to obviously the difficult times for Plymouth, we go back to like 2011, 2012. We're all Torquay, Exeter and Plymouth in the same league. I love to remind that Torquay did the double over Plymouth. How many years ago does that seem like now? In 10 years' time, I like to think we'll look back at this period as well. But go back to those times. What are the similarities? Because obviously Plymouth got relegated twice in quick succession, bit like we might do now. Torquay fans like to think we've always been a football league club. We are 2 divisions below where we are, and obviously Plymouth going from Championship to League Two. Similarities there, isn't there? So what was it like at the time?
Yeah, I remember that season, and I just remember saying to a lot of Argyle fans at the time, we need to just get a bit of a grip here, because there was a lot of huff and puff about how are we getting beaten so badly by teams like Torquay. And hang on a minute, Torquay are a good side. You made the playoffs that year, I think, and the year before, didn't you? So you made the playoffs 2 years in a row. So that was Martin Ling, wasn't it, at that time, which was managing you guys. And I remember thinking, well, they're a pretty good team for this level. They got a few good players. I remember Rene Howe, I think he was at Torquay, wasn't he? And Eunan O'Kane, I think, was a good player for you guys around that time as well.
Yeah.
So I remember those 2 games. I didn't go to the away game, but I did go to the home game just after New Year. And yeah, you really did a number on us Saturday. You were comfortably the better team, you deserved to win. And I think it just shows that Torquay can be a league side. And look, it is going to be more difficult, I think, to be brutally honest, just because of the number of non-league sides that are now backed with big money.
Yeah.
And I think when Torquay had their first foray into non-league,
yeah,
even then you were still down there for about 4 or 5 years.
We had a couple of years, but we were one of the most wealthy teams at that time, so it was a lot easier.
Yeah,
and
sure.
It was more a case in 2008, 2007 where there was like 4 or 5 teams with a lot of money, and then the rest. Where now there's literally only 3 part-time teams in the National League, I believe. And
but in the south, I think it's only yourselves and Yeovil that are full-time,
and
right?
Eastbourne and Maidstone. But I mean, but still, that's still the point. Yeah, we are a full-time
but obviously,
team.
I guess this season it's obviously, despite having that financial advantage in theory, it's obviously been completely blown out of the water by the stuff that's happened to you. But
and our own mismanagement as well. And our own mismanagement.
Of course, yeah. Well, yeah, of course. But going back to that time, it was a very scary time, because I think we literally were going to sleep pretty much every night, wondering if we'd wake up the next morning to see the news alert come through that we'd been wound up, and it really was that close to happening. That's not an exaggeration at all. And the owner, obviously the owners they all jumped ship and left when the administrators came in, and the administrators obviously the appointed administrator was a man called Brendan Guilfoyle, and he sort of brought in Peter Ridsdale and Kevin Heaney and all sorts of other I'm going to be careful. I don't want to get your podcast sued. So unsavory people, shall we say unsavory? I think that's a fair word. All sorts of unsavory people, and eventually it became very, very clear. I think it only became clear to the administrator, 2 months after it should have been, that this bid of people were not going to get the bid done to save the club. Right. And they then brought in James Rent, who I'm sure is very well known around Devon, isn't he? He's got fingers in a lot of pies, who did eventually come in and was at that time the saviour of the club.
So that went on a few months then, didn't it? That was a long process, because this has been going on it's been a month, I think, when we're recording about tomorrow, or today even, when we got announced to go into administration. It's felt like ages. So, but went on for months.
We gave notice to appoint an administrator in February, because I remember it was the day before we went to Brighton away at the Withdean Stadium, as it was then, and we got thumped 4-0. We came out of administration on the 31st of October. So 9 months it went on, start to end.
So you went for a whole summer with it. Is that when you went down from League 1 to League 2? I can't remember.
Exactly. That summer was the summer after League 1 relegation, and we were going into the first day of pre-season training with 4 professional players, one of which was a first-year pro. Obviously, Lario, who was our goalkeeper, club legend, and a couple of others. And I think one first-year pro was literally all we had. Now, we did obviously then get a few more in terms of just getting bodies, on, which is kind of remarkable that we did, really, because we sort of got them in on the promise of you're going to have to defer your wages, but when you do get your wages, you'll probably be paid quite a decent sum for League 2 level because of our crowd still being quite high. Yeah. So it was kind of remarkable that we got players in. We did.
So it can work.
But it's skin of our teeth.
Yeah,
it can work. It can, particularly with Torquay, because let's be honest now, in League 2. Torquay were, don't get me wrong, they were a good team for that level.
Yeah, of course.
They were probably, I think it would be fair to say, not a big fish in League 2. In the Conference South, you are obviously very much a big fish. And
or Southern Premier.
If God forbid the worst going to happen, and I really hope it doesn't, then you'd be a very, very big fish indeed in that league.
So it's similar.
Yeah. Do you suppose you'd stay full-time if that were to happen? A bit of a tangent, I know, but...
We can hope, but I mean, either way, it's not sustainable to be full time in a league that's below the National League, let alone not the National South. But I mean, you can still make part time work. I mean, and transition back.
Hybrid model, I think, as well. Some clubs have, don't they?
Yeah, so that can still work.
Yeah. So going back to the question, obviously then we came out of administration, and that was a great moment of relief. And then the away game against Torquay was, I think, literally about 3 or 4 weeks after we came out of administration. And then the home game was the January after. So, that summer of League 1 into League 2 was a really weird time. Just not, kind of think, we sort of had the mix of everything. All these new players coming in, going into a league we hadn't played in many years. All that sort of intrigue about that. But in the back of all of our minds was, are we actually going to have a club? Every game we go into, we're thinking this could be the last time that we play, but we did get out of it. It is possible.
So it shows that it can go on a long.
You.
It shows it can go on a long time. I hope. My opinion of all this, long term, as long as the club is in a good state with good owners with like the proper intentions and experience and all that, that's fine. And we all said it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I didn't realise how long that actually went on for with Plymouth. I thought it was kind of a bit of a decline, and then obviously got relegated, and then. But I didn't realise, that's really interesting. Of course, and then for the people that comes in, they're not guaranteed to get it right. They've got to repair a lot of club DNA and a lot of that, which obviously Plymouth have done. And we need to do.
Very much so. I mean, when James Reddick came in, first thing he did was to appoint Carl Fletcher, who'd been the caretaker manager after Peter Reid left as the permanent manager. And that season, he did do a very good job. He kept us up. We were 24th when we came out of administration. We ended the season 23rd. But it still took a lot of time to build the club DNA back up. That sort of season after, we were all thinking, oh, well, hang on a minute now. We've got out of administration. We're quite a big fish for this league. Let's have a look at playoffs, at least top half, that bit of rebuilding. But
it was a relegation battle, wasn't it? You were with us, weren't you? Yeah,
it was another relegation battle.
Yeah, we both
we did. That's right. That's right. And there was that great. And obviously, Carl Fletcher then got replaced in the January after again. And we brought in John Sheridan, who kept us up. But which I think that really, the reason I mentioned that, Sam, is it really speaks to the point of what you said, is that it takes a long time to repair that club DNA. Because even though that 2012 season, after our first full season after, we were still very much a big fish financially, budget, crowd, all of that. If the culture isn't right, and if the structure isn't right, and like you say, the DNA isn't right, it's still going to be a struggle. And that's why we sacked Carl Fletcher just when we were just outside the relegation zone. And what a tragedy that would have been if after heroically escaping the year before, we actually then went down to the conference the year after. And
it's all about momentum, isn't it? Because you look at a few clubs like Oldham, they've got a new chairman after those with problems, and like they're slowly getting there. They've got a great chairman, but it does take time. I think that's what Torquay fans look. Right now, we just appreciate it to have a club. It will take time to repair all this, and especially the further we fall. But I think the main thing, though, from a fan's point of view, is what we can take away is, even though yes, that is the case, just having a football club with a bit of direction, and during those times in that sort of 2013-14, when you had the club back in that sort of state, that you can feel that there's people with good intentions behind it. But that is interesting. Of course, then obviously the Ryan Lowe appointment and getting promoted and all that, and so that we are now. And similar with Exeter, obviously speaking on their behalf, of course. Was it 2005, 2006? They had their issues, and that we are now. It can work down in Devon, and I hate it. I mean, Plymouth I know Plymouth obviously got a bigger pool and all that, but Plymouth even further down the country than we are. This is what really doesn't matter when people go, it's a location problem. You've just got to be really smart.
Well, I think we've both had quite a boring financial crisis compared to Exeter. We didn't have any American singers or spoon benders or any of that stuff, did we? We just had mismanagement. Theirs was a lot more exciting than ours, but I'm sure they didn't feel that way. I'm being a bit tongue-in-cheek.
No, that is interesting. But again, I mean, obviously Yeovil have had quite a lot of issues as well, and even though financially they're fine, there's still murmurings going on around that. But it just shows with X and Plymouth, my message to a lot of sort of potential buyers or anyone, that it can work down here, and to our fans watching this, that it can obviously work, and we can get out of this mess. And when it does click again, this club has so much hidden potential. So moving on to Devon Day. I mean, Chris, Tom, do you want to? You've been quite quiet. I haven't invited you in much. Anything you two want to add?
I'd like to ask Sam, when the news came out about, being in administration, how did the club generate, revenue from a fan's perspective? Because obviously with Torquay at the moment, they're encouraging fans to donate to the club directly. They're encouraging people to, buy merchandise, buy tickets, when it all came to roost a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I personally bought a ticket for the Aveley game, even though I knew I couldn't go there, and then I donated what I would normally spend. Did the club kind of go down that route in Argyle?
So this is where maybe our scenario was a bit different to yours, and I'm not saying that what we did is necessarily what you should have done, because every situation is different and has its own nuances. But with us, there was such a total lack of trust in the ownership of that time. It was a little bit more militant than the route that you guys are taking. It was very much, we will fundraise, but we had a fantastic organisation called the Green Taverners, whose primary focus was to fundraise and raise money for the affected staff, and in some cases, when it was the very young players, the players as well, who didn't have much saving behind them, and they would literally directly fundraise to pay their wages because the club weren't doing it. Because again, and it is not wanting sort of one-upmanship or whatever, but I think with Torquay, you're just about keeping the wages going, albeit slightly belatedly, aren't you? Whereas with the Argyle scenario, because it was that much further down the financial rabbit hole, I think the players and staff didn't get a full paycheck. They got sort of partial paychecks and then agreed to defer the rest. They didn't actually get a full paycheck for pretty much a whole year. So because of that, realistically, we didn't say as such, send all your money in the club, because really that would have just gone down the financial rabbit hole, and not much more of it would have seen the staff. So what we did was more in the way of, we're going to do these fundraising events, we're going to have a fan fest, have an end of season party, this, that, and the other. But rather than give it to the club, who will then, in theory, pay the staff, we're just going to set that up directly for the staff. It's going to be sort of, to each to their need, as it were, and those who were most in need would get some financial assistance to help with their personal situations. Now, look, I'm not here to preach to you. I'm not saying that's the route you guys should take, because I get that your situation is a bit more complicated. I think you've got some good people around there who are genuinely trying to make things better. Right? It's sort of how I gather it. That's what I've heard. Again, I'm not an expert, but with ourselves at the time, there was such a culture of mistrust. Yeah. We almost didn't want to give any money to them because we didn't feel it would go to the right places. So I don't know. Obviously, look, that's something you've got to have that infrastructure there to have an organisation who have that sort of managerial level and the infrastructure to donate that to the staff. So it's obviously a very difficult thing to set up. But thankfully, we had some people who were sort of that business realm who had the skill set and had the infrastructure to do that, and that's what the Green Taverners did. So I think that is a little bit of a difference. We weren't quite so much in terms of putting money into the club. I'm not saying that's the wrong approach for you guys to take. I'm not.
No, I do. That was the debate in the Torquay fan base at the time. Yeah, Chris, anything to add?
That wasn't the approach that we took.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Sammy. It's very interesting just listening to you. I just like to ask a question about today, really, because my boss is a Plymouth fan, so I hear lots about Plymouth, and I'm just curious just to think from an on-the-pitch perspective where you feel Plymouth are right now, because I hear, not from my boss, I hasten to add, but you hear quite a lot of things in your social media. There's a lot of disharmony about the manager and who's come in, and it's not necessarily improved things dramatically. But I was at the Plymouth-Blackburn game in September, and I thought Plymouth were very impressive that day. They had players at the front of the pitch that Blackburn, although Blackburn had chances, Plymouth took theirs, and they looked like they had a squad that would be more than okay. But it's kind of tailed off a bit since Christmas, hasn't it? And again, is the field they'll be okay, or is there real concern that this downturn could continue and then there could be a big lack of come the end of the season?
Yeah, there is real concern, actually. I'm not going to beat around the bush and dress it up. I think you said since Christmas, and it's, well, very specifically, it's since Stephen Schumacher left Stoke. It is such a direct opposite to what we have now. Under Schumacher, we were very fearless. Yeah. We were very attacking. Whoever we played, we would take the game to them. We wouldn't fear anybody. We went to Leicester. We had 2 great chances in the first half. We really took the game to Leicester. We were a bit borderline the better team in that first half. We went and lost 4-0. It happens, because they then just scored 3 goals in about 7 or 8 minutes at the start of the second half. Lost 4-0. Stuff happens, But there was never a feeling that we were going to go down, never a feeling we were going to be in trouble. We would always have that good attacking style. Like in that Blackburn game was a great example. Like we're playing Norwich on Good Friday, our first game back after the international break. In the home game, we beat Norwich 6-2, just because that was one of the days that everything went right under Schumacher. I don't know if any of you are cricket fans, you're aware of the concept of baseball. Maybe some of your listeners might, which is incredibly, attacking cricket at all times, go for everything. It was almost like footballing baseball under Schumacher. We were a relatively
that brings fans in as well. I think that's what you've got to do as a club like that. Yeah. You've got to do that.
It 100% does. But then there was Schumacher got poached by Stoke, partly just because Stoke are a much bigger club than us in terms of what they can offer financially, much bigger club in terms of their stadium. But I think that there were rumblings of discontent that Schumacher and our director of football, Neil Dewsip, had a bit of a differing vision. Dewsip wanted to go back to 3 at the back, tighten up the defence a bit. And I think that maybe it's not been the main factor, may have contributed to Schumacher going out the door. And we appointed Ian Foster, who, for all his good work in the England coaching setup, he's a bit of a deuce-it mini-me. He very much conforms to the defence-first style.
Yeah.
And he has not done well at all, quite frankly. Points per game, he's on 1 point per game, which, you might think, hang on a minute, Argyle in the Championship, not a big club, 1 point per game isn't too bad. And I suppose on the face of it, it's not too bad. But look, ultimately, the style of football is very defensive, very boring to watch. And even some of the games that we have picked up points in, we've not been too good. There's an aspect of luck towards it. So yeah, not going well at the moment for us. And I think there is a danger that if things don't improve, we will struggle to get out of it.
That is interesting. It just shows, sometimes these appointments don't work. But that's football, that's sport, and that's kind of how decisions go. Any other things? Obviously, going towards Devon Day, obviously, I encourage any Plymouth Exeter fan. I encourage Torquay fans to go as well, actually. If you want to obviously join us, even if the ones that just want to go into the the Hampton away end, feel free to do that, because it's all money towards the club at the end of the day, isn't it? But it's going to be a bit of a weird day, because with everything right now, it's kind of like
everything's weird at the moment, though, Sam. So it's just another occasion.
Because right now we also need to win the game, and players cannot have any excuses for not performing, because we are in a massive scrap, which we have talked about more in episode 1, the episode we haven't recorded yet. But it's a very weird day for many different reasons. But I mean, I'm very appreciative of the wider football community, ex-Plymouth fans, anyone that goes, So, and if you go there, it might make you feel a bit better about your current state of affairs.
Just highlights though.
I'll take a relegation battle with Championship.
It just highlights though.
This is true. This is very true.
Just highlights though how Devon as a county, how much stronger we are when all three clubs are doing well. We'll always have rivalries, but ultimately, Devon needs 3 clubs in the Football League. I find, fans in Devon especially, I mean, you look at the numbers that all clubs, all 3 of our clubs take.
There's more of a, even though football isn't as big thing down in Devon in general, but the catchment area is still greater if you get them on side, like Plymouth and Exeter do. Because when you're obviously in London, like you've got all the big football clubs, like Arsenal, Tottenham, they all take a lot from like Barnet and all that. Up in Midlands, you've got all loads of different clubs. Down there's less clubs. So if you do get a community on side and get them into football and, do all the community stuff right, you have so much potential, as what Plymouth have done, Exeter doing, hopefully we can do as well. So it does just show. It's a bit, I believe my point makes sense, but it is unique, is what I'm saying. A bit like up with like Newcastle and something and all that. But
that's one of the great debates among the Argyle fans historically, of the whole catchment area thing, and it can go both ways. We can say our catchment area is all of Cornwall, all of Plymouth and the surrounding towns, quite a lot of North Devon. And even without wanting to encroach on your territory too much, sort of pushing into sort of South Brent,
I know, a lot of Plymouth fans
is our catchment area. Is our sort of catchment area, but that can go both ways. Having a big catchment area, that's another word for saying we're bloody near anywhere, and that can have a a lot of problems with attracting players. And yes, whilst we have done well in recent years with our recruitment, absolutely we have. I do think if we were the same size club, same management structure, same infrastructure, but located in Bristol, I absolutely think that it would be easier for us to attract top quality players. We have players like Morgan Whittaker, who's one of the best players in the Championship this season, who
amazing.
Interest from Lazio. Interest from Lazio. And the night he could have been playing at the Allianz Arena, he was instead at a cold, soggy home park, conceding a last-minute goal to draw the Coventry. So I bet he was regretting his life choices that night. But joking aside, he's an example of somebody who absolutely fell in love with the place, and
that's all you can do.
And perhaps until Ian Foster came along, fell in love with the team and the style of play as well. But whether he still is now is another question. But but I think that's how the Southwest can really thrive on a wider level, is by
if you get it right.
making a fuss of the selling points, because I think there is a community spirit in the Southwest that you don't necessarily get in other parts of the country, and I think that's that is a selling point. And I think that the natural beauty, the beaches, the seaside, the malls all around you, I think people do like that. Yes, it's a bit of a hard sell for a young 20-odd-year-old footballer from Manchester or London who all their mates are up there and they like the big nightlife and all that kind of stuff. But I think when people do come down here, a lot of them often find an Everton Warnock, for example. He lived in the North all his life, came down to manage us in the 1990s, got a house in Cornwall, and his wife has lived there ever since.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Well, I think that covers everything, actually. You've been a fantastic guest, Sam. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll be there on Saturday. If any of you guys want to meet up for a pint on Saturday. It's my pleasure.
There we go.
Can't we be there?
Yeah.
Well, thank you to everyone who is going to turn up on Saturday. I think, it really means a lot, not just to the club, but just for the whole county, how important this is. And before we end this episode, Sam, sorry to take the shine off it, but, the one thing I'm trying to take away as a positive is you look at what happened to Exeter and you look what happened to Plymouth. They've all come back stronger. Yeah. So fingers crossed, Yellow Army, that we can come back stronger from what's going on at the moment. But no, thank you to everyone who's been so supportive, and we carry on.
Yes, and thank you again, Sam. Amazing guest. Brilliant. Thank you for giving your time tonight and giving that insight. So we'll see you next week.
Here's Hargreaves, chance for Torquay. Chris Hargreaves, the captain. He stays onside. Carlisle checks instead. He's looking for Benyon. Sells.